I'm sorry, I knew there was something else I was supposed to say. We have Pastor Adisa Arman with us today, and we're so happy to have her back. Yeah.
You all are very kind. Thank you. Happy New Year to everyone. It is good to be in this place at this day, at this time, and welcome to worship at Christ the King Lutheran Church. People of God, do you intend to continue in the covenant God made with you in holy baptism? Live among God's faithful people, hear the word of God and share in the Lord's Supper, proclaim the good news of God in Christ through word and deed. Serve all people following the example of Jesus and strive for justice and peace in all the earth. Welcome those present here in this sanctuary and those virtually. In the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. And the people say, Amen.
Pardon me?
Off or on? Off or on?
I wear hearing aids, so I have to wear.
On or off?
Yeah, you can take it off.
People of God, when we seek God's mercy, we draw close. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the communion of the Holy Spirit be with you all.
And also with you.
Of the Father's love begotten, ere the world began to be, He is Alpha and Omega, He the source, the ending, He that future years shall see, evermore and evermore. Amen.
Gloria in excelsis Deo. Gloria in excelsis Deo. Let us pray. Almighty God, you have filled all the earth with the light of your incarnate word. By your grace, empower us to reflect your light in all that we do. Through Jesus Christ, our Savior and Lord, who lives and reigns with you and the Holy Spirit, one God, now and forever. Amen.
Our psalm is Psalm 147, verses 12 through 20. Worship the Lord, O Jerusalem. Praise your God, O Zion, who has strengthened the bars of your gates and has blessed your children within you. God has established peace on your borders and satisfies you with the finest wheat. God sends out a command to the earth, a word that runs very swiftly. God gives snow like wool, scattering frost like ashes. God scatters hail like breadcrumbs. Who can stand against God's cold? The Lord sends forth the word and melts them. The wind blows and the waters flow. God declares the word to Jacob, statutes and judgments to Israel. The Lord has not done so to any other nation. They do not know God's judgments. Hallelujah. Our reading is from Ephesians 1, verses 3 through 14. Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, who has blessed us in Christ with every spiritual blessing in the heavenly places, just as he chose us in Christ before the foundation of the world to be holy and blameless before him in love. He destined us for adoption as his children through Jesus Christ, according to the good pleasure of his will, to the praise of his glorious grace that he freely bestowed upon us in the beloved. In him we have redemption through blood, the forgiveness of our trespasses, according to the riches of his grace that he lavished on us. With all wisdom and insight, he has made known to us mystery of his will, according to his good pleasure that he set forth in Christ, as planned for the fullness of time, to gather up all things in him, things in heaven and things on earth. In Christ we have also obtained inheritance, having been destined according to the purpose of him who accomplishes all things according to his counsel and will, so that we may, who were the first to set our hope on Christ, might live for the praise of his glory. In him you also, when you had heard the word of truth, the gospel of your salvation, and had believed in him, were marked with the real seal of the promised Holy Spirit. This is the pledge of our inheritance toward redemption as God's own people, to praise of his glory, word of God, word of life. Thanks be to God.
Come and worship to the people. Hallelujah.
God has spoken words of wisdom. Hallelujah. God has spoken to the people. Hallelujah. God has spoken words of wisdom. Hallelujah.
People of God, please stand for the reading of the Holy Gospel. The Gospel according to St. Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem asking, "Where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? For we observed his star at its rising and have come to pay him homage." When King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all Jerusalem with him. And calling together all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it has been written by the prophet. And you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For from you shall come a ruler who is to shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod secretly called for the wise men and learned from them the exact time when the star had appeared. Then he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word so that I may also go and pay him homage." When they had heard the king, they set out, and there ahead of them went the star that they had seen at its rising until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw that the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. Then, opening their treasure chest, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another road. the gospel of our Lord.
Open your ears, O faithful people, open your ears and hear God's word. Open your hearts, O royal priesthood, God has come to you. God has spoken to the people, hallelujah. God has spoken words of wisdom, hallelujah. God has spoken to the people, hallelujah. God has spoken words of wisdom, hallelujah.
I think it was many, many years ago that I stood in front of you for the last time before we have been apart. And what a couple of years it's been. Being at home, seeing images of all sorts of sadness, not too much joy. Having an election, having all sorts of things happen to unravel the seams of our democracy. But within all of that, I know that you've been having conversations with one another, and there has been laughter and joy. And sometimes I know that when you go to the store, at least I go to the store not too often. I do like to go out. And then when I go out, I like to listen to other people's conversations or engage in conversation because, Don has learned that if I stop for a while, he'll just keep on walking until he can catch up with me. I'm trying to do a little bit better with that, it's just a part of me. But there was a conversation that I overheard, and I want to share it with you. And this man said the following, and I quote, "I don't want to work until I'm too old to live." Now, he didn't elaborate, and he wasn't speaking to me. He didn't explain to the people he was speaking to what the words meant, but those words have stayed with me. I think it's one of those statements that says more than the words he spoke. My guess is that it's not really even about his work. After all, life and work don't have to be mutually exclusive. People find life and meaning in their work, and work can be an essential part of a fulfilling life. I think he was talking a little bit more about not just work. So I started wondering if he was talking about his longing. I started wondering if he was talking about his desire. I wonder if he was searching for something. And I wonder if he was talking about his fear. The fear of missing out. The fear of losing a part of himself and living less than being fully alive. Now, those are my interpretations. But I think the experiences of longing and fear are universal, yeah? I recognize both in my life and I've seen them in the lives of others. For most of us, it's probably not one or the other, but both at the same time. We live between the two poles of longing and fear. And today's gospel, Matthew 2, 1 through 12, tells us that's where Epiphany lies. And today is the first Sunday in Epiphany. It lies amidst our longing and fear. Longing and fear are the bookends on Epiphany. And at one end, you have the wise men from the east following the star. They've left their own country, the familiar, the usual, what is known to them on an everyday basis, in search of and desiring something new and maybe even unknown. They don't know where this journey will take them. They only know that they have to take this journey. It's as if there is a call on their lives that cannot be left unanswered. Who or what is calling is unknown. There's no caller ID with an epiphany. At the other end is Herod, the bookend of fear. In our gospel lesson, Matthew says he is frightened. He was frightened, and all Jerusalem with him. Can you imagine all of Jerusalem being frightened because Herod is frightened? That's amazing. That's powerful. Herod is threatened by the possibility of a new king. His power and identity are at risk of being lost, and maybe he fears being an impoverished and living a diminished life. Herod calls others to himself. He calls those scribes and the chief priest. Can you imagine them gathering there? But you know, Herod kind of stays back. He stays where he is, but he grasps and clings to what is familiar and known. The wise men and Herod are responding to the same thing. The child and the birth of new life. The wise men are open and give themselves to something new and maybe even unknown. But Herod is closed and wants the same old thing. The wise men travel and search. Herod hunkers down and shelters in place. The wise men follow their longing, and Herod wallows in his fear. Both were about the child. Both were about an epiphany. I think we tend to hear the epiphany story as being an epiphany to the wise men only. But what if it's also an epiphany to Herod as well? And I'm not talking about epiphany in the usual sense of having a flash of insight or a sudden realization. I don't think that's what today's gospel is about. I've come to believe, and this is just over the past 3 years, that we don't have epiphanies, but that they have us. Epiphanies are not so much those moments when we say, aha, I've got it. They're rather moments when we say, it's got me. Oh no, it's got me. And sometimes that happens in our longings, and at other times it happens in our fears. But both situations are offering us something, and both are seeking a response from us. That's what epiphanies do. They give us a glimpse of ourselves, our life, our world, and then they call for and ask for a response. And that response is what distinguishes the wise men from Herod. The difference isn't that an epiphany happened for the wise men, but not for Herod. The difference is that the wise men observed and followed the star. They opened their treasure chest and went home by another road. And Herod did not. But what if he had? What if Herod had observed and followed the star too? What if Herod had opened the treasure chest of his life? What if he had returned home by, quote, another road? How might his life have changed? And what, my dear sisters and brothers, what if we did those things? How might our lives change? When I look at my longings and fears, when others tell me about their longings and fears, when I remember the words of the man I overheard, which are, I don't want to work until I'm too old to live. I am convinced that both the wise man and Herod live within us. They have parts of ourselves. And I'm strongly convinced that wherever there is a longing or fear, there is an epiphany awaiting our response. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. about your longings and fears? You don't have to answer them out loud. You'll probably want to just think about them. So what longing or searching or desire has gotten a hold of you? I want you to picture the people who are involved. I just want you to describe what is happening. And then I want you to feel the ache deep within you, the ache that hurts so good. What is calling you today? What is being asked of you in the name of God? What matters so much to you that when you ignore it, it becomes the matter with you? Well, what do you hope? What future are you desiring that sounds to you impossible? What fears have gotten a hold of you? Again, I want you to picture the faces, name the people, describe the situations, and then feel the adrenaline. What keeps you paralyzed and unable to leave the place where you are? What is it about your life or relationships you least want to face and deal with? I think this is the last one. What do you most fear losing? And what is fear teaching you about yourself, your life, your relationships? What would you do if you weren't afraid? And how would your life be different? A few moments ago, I asked you a question which I'm going to repeat. Saints of Christ the King Lutheran, what is being asked of you in the name of God? Whatever your answers are to those questions about longings and fears, they describe an epiphany. They are a star in the sky of your life waiting to be observed and followed. They are the treasure chest of your life waiting to be opened. They are the child of new life waiting to be held. And in all that, something is being revealed to you and something is being asked of you. It might be love or forgiveness, having courage, having compassion. It might be about gentleness with yourself or another person. It might be new life. It might be about your own truth-telling. And aren't these the very qualities and values of the child whose life the wise men and Herod were seeking? They are at the heart of our deepest longing and on the other side of our worst fears. And most importantly, they reveal Emmanuel, God with us. That is the epiphany, and it's always before us. It's always calling us and waiting for a response. So what will you do with the epiphany before you today? How will you respond? My prayer for me and for all of us here in the sanctuary and virtually is that today we will go on another road, home by another road. And the people of Christ the King Lutheran Church say, Amen.
Tear the sky apart.
Please join me at this time, if you would, in confessing our faith in the Apostles' Creed. I believe in God, the Father Almighty, creator of heaven and earth. I believe in Jesus Christ, God's only Son, our Lord, who was conceived by the Holy Spirit, born of the Virgin Mary, suffered under Pontius Pilate, was crucified, died, and was buried. He descended to the dead. On the third day, he arose again. He ascended into heaven. He is seated at the right hand of the Father, and he will come to judge the living and the dead. I believe in the Holy Spirit, the Holy Catholic Church, the communion of saints, the forgiveness of sins, the resurrection of the body, and the life everlasting. Amen. Join our voices with the heavenly host and Christians throughout time and space. Let us pray for the church, the world, and all in need. You make yourself known in the gifts of language and diverse forms. Draw our attention to those who communicate through signs, braille, technology like hearing aids. Make your church a place where all methods of communication are celebrated. Creating God, the sun greets us anew each morning. Thank you for waking up to today to witness and share your abundance. Awaken us always to your wisdom and deepening our care for your natural world. Emmanuel, in your name, we are assured that you are with us. Train nations and people to honor and respect one another, especially those whose names and identities have been mistreated, neglected, or oppressed. You adopt us as your beloved ones, accompany parents and children navigating the adoption process, especially those in the foster system, sustaining those struggling with infertility or pregnancy loss. Tenderly embrace all in need. You journey with us through change. Guide those assuming new roles in this congregation or making transitions in their families, workplaces, or communities. As the seasons and the calendar change, equip us for unexpected challenges. We give you thanks for all who modeled lives of loving, leading us in grace until, with all your saints, we enter the fullness of your glory. At this time, for what else and whom else do you wish to pray? Rejoicing in your word made flesh among us, we commend these prayers to you, confident of your grace and love made known to us in Jesus Christ, our Savior.
Amen.
Amen. God gives us what we need every day. And God asks us to give what we can to those in need around us. Thank you for your graciousness and your gifts. Amen. We think what we offer is not that much or can accomplish anything of worth. But with you, Holy God, all things are possible. So we trust you will use them, multiply them, offer them to those who need hope, healing, grace, and peace in their lives. Amen.
Okay, I've got the words up here. You'll recognize that we're repeating a lot of these lines. So join me in this song. It's also 253 in your hymnal. Came down that we may have love He came down that we may have love. He came down that we may have love. Hallelujah forevermore. He came down that we may have light. He came down that we may have light. He came down that we may have light. Hallelujah forevermore. He came down that we may have peace. He came down that we may have peace. He came down that we may have peace. Hallelujah forevermore. He came down that we may have joy. He came down that we may have joy. He came down that we may have joy. Hallelujah forevermore. Let's have some more love. Came down that we may have love. He came down that we may have love. He came down that we may have love. Hallelujah forevermore. Hallelujah forevermore.
People of God, wherever and whoever you are, communion with God is coming to you. Prepare to welcome your guest. The Lord be with us. Lift up your hearts. We lift them to the Lord. We give thanks to the Lord our God. God, you never promised us that way would be clear. You have, however, created us in your image. The image of one who is wisdom, who is love, who is courage. You breathed your life into us with the assurance that we have within and around us everything we need to be your faithful people. Though we sometimes act in disregard for your call on our collective life. Still, you show up with and for us relentlessly. And so we join with all the saints who have gone before in gratitude for your abiding presence.
Holy, holy, holy Lord, God of power and might, heaven and earth are full of your glory. Hosanna in the highest. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest. Hosanna in the highest.
It says that I should remind the congregation to join in. So let's do it again like it's for the first time. On the night which he gave himself up for us, he took bread, gave thanks, broke the bread, and gave it to his disciples and said, "Take and eat. This is my body, which is given for you. Do this in remembrance of me." Words of over, he took the cup, gave thanks, and gave it to his disciples and said, "Drink from this, all of you. This is my blood of the new covenant, poured out for you and for many for the forgiveness of sins. Do this as often as you drink it in remembrance of me."
Christ has
That's
died.
the mystery of the faith. Christ has died. Christ is risen. Christ will come again. Amen.
Jesus called God his Father. So do we. Please pray in the language and translation of your heart. Our
Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as in heaven. Give us today our daily bread. Forgive us our sins as we forgive those who sin against us. Save us from the time of trial and deliver us from evil. For the kingdom, the power, and the glory are yours, now and forever.
Amen.
Amen. Take away the sin of the world. Have mercy on us. Lamb of God, you take away the sin of the world. Have mercy on us. Lamb of God, you take away the sin of the world. Grant us peace. Friends of Jesus, come to the table. See and taste that the Lord is good.
We give you thanks, gracious God, that you have once again fed us with your very self, with the body and blood of Christ. Through this mystery, send us forth to proclaim your promise to the world in need. Through the same Jesus Christ, our Savior. Amen.
Amen. People of God, also known as Christ the King Lutheran Church, I invite you to stand for the blessing if able. And for those who are watching us virtually, you may stand or continue to have a mug of coffee as you stand. May God bless you and take good care of you. May God smile on you and be gracious to you. May God look on you with favor and give you shalom, his peace, in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. And the saints of Christ the King Lutheran Church say, Amen. And our sending hymn is one of my favorites, Joy to the World.
Joy to the world, the Lord is come. Let earth receive her King. Let every voice sing, and nature sing, and heaven and nature sing. Joy to the earth, the Savior reigns. Let all the songs employ, while fields and floods and spills and plains repeat the sounding joy, repeat the sound joy, repeat the sounding joy. No more sin and sorrow grow, nor thorns infest the crown. It comes to make his blessings flow, for as the curse is found, for as the curse is found, for as the curse is found. He rules the world with truth and grace, and makes the nations praise the glories of his righteousness, and wonders of his love, and wonders of his love, and wonders of his love.
Thanks be to God. The service has ended and we are going to be disciples with Christ. Amen. Amen.